Hello, hello. I'm so glad you can make it today. Um, I'm going to discuss something today about factual truth about exchanges between two people, exchanges between people, the way events are seen when someone, like eyewitnesses, say something happened when in actuality they didn't see the whole thing, so they can't tell for sure. They only have their own perspective from wherever they were at. And we're going to look at some different options here as to why different people see things in different ways and how you can find out what the factual truth really is of certain circumstances. But we will draw a conclusion based off of an imaginary scenario. I've written a synopsis of what I want to discuss. So let's dive right into it. Okay, so here is the first example. Say I had an orange and I gave you the orange and you said thank you and you ate the orange. That's a true exchange between two people. I agreed to give you the orange, you agreed to take the orange, and you were thankful for it and ate it and enjoyed it. Well, just say we had a witness to the exchange. So witness 1 was like 10 feet away. Witness 2 was like 4 foot away. And witness 3 was across the street. Which of these witnesses do you think would have had the best perspective to see and observe what just took place? Well, you would probably stand to reason that probably the two that were closest to the situation would probably be able to see the clearest as to what really happened. Well, here's another thing. Just say that you and I were standing kind of facing the same direction down the sidewalk of City Street, right? So we're both facing that way, but slightly towards each other when I hand you the orange and you took the orange. But just say it's cold out, so we both have jackets on. And so sometimes the jacket's sleeves are big, sometimes the coat kind of, you might not have it zipped up or buttoned up or whatever. And so the coat may be just hanging there. And it could obstruct, if the two people are close enough, it could obstruct the view depending on which side you're standing. Okay, just say the person who is 4 feet away was standing behind you. They might not have the clearest view of what just took place. However, the person who was 10 feet away could be on the sidewalk facing you, coming towards you when they noticed the exchange. So now, the person from across the street might not actually see from a good perspective because there might be traffic going by on the street that would obstruct the views, and it could skew the view of the person who was across the street, or at least has potential to. So actually, in this particular scenario, the person who is 10 feet away facing you, coming towards you, would have the best view of what just took place because they're facing you and they saw me hand you something that looked like an orange. Okay. Well, most generally speaking, handing someone an orange is quite insignificant. People would just say, oh, that person's nice for sharing, and then wouldn't think anything of it after that. However, just say the situation is more complicated than that. Just because a thing was done doesn't necessarily mean there was anything bad going on, but you never know depending on the circumstance in which this deed is done. Okay, just say that we're poor and we're the serfs, we're the poor people, we're the low class. We don't have nice, expensive things. We don't partake of all the things the rich people do because we're poor. Okay. So just say that oranges are rare and that only rich people had oranges. And just say that I ended up with an orange and I gave to this other person who's just like me, a poor person, because I'm trying to be nice to this other person. Well, how do you know how I got that orange? since I'm a poor person, I can never afford to buy such a luxury as this orange, which is very rare, and most poor people cannot ever afford to buy an orange. In this scenario, the person across the street could wonder about, how did I come up with an orange? Did it look like an apple? Could be, but it really looked like an orange. How did she come up with the orange? She's too poor. You could tell by the way she dresses. She's too poor to have an orange. How did she come by an orange? She must have stole the orange. That's how she got the orange from the person across the street. Now that puts a different spin on the story, now doesn't it? Well, just say that the person across the street is one of those snitches that like to tell on people. So they come to the authorities and say, well, I saw so-and-so on the street and hand somebody else, this other person, an orange. She had to have stolen the orange. Have you heard that anybody reported any produce stolen? You see how things can be spun to the negative under a scenario like that, and somebody that is jumping and just aching to spin the wrong narrative. Now let's talk about narratives. Anyone can spin a narrative, but a narrative does not mean that it's 100% fact. And it doesn't mean that just because you spin this narrative, that it is the truth. But you want your listeners to believe that it is the truth, so you are a good storyteller and you sit there and spin a good one. How familiar does that sound these days, doesn't it? Okay, so if you want the narrative to say that this woman, she stole the orange, and she should be prosecuted for stealing. Now we got to come up with a way to prove that she stole this orange. So we got to dig a little bit. We got to make it appear that she actually did this wrong deed. We must find out more. So the person across the street prances across like there's somebody. Yeah. They've got to give a really good impression that they are full of clout, that they know people, and that they have contacts. They know people that know people in high places. They're somebody because they know people. So they start talking to me and they like, well, where did you come up with this orange? Only rich people have those, You must have been quite fortunate to have come up with one. How did that happen? Well, me being a little bit of a private person thinks, well, isn't that my business and not yours? Another person, well, if you got an orange, maybe I could go by the same person and get an orange too. Who'd you get it from? So you see how they're trying to get into the no by asking questions and pretending that, they want to partake in orange too, and that they'd love to have one for themselves. And where did I get it? And the story thickens. Yes, indeed. The story thickens. Okay, now, just say that I let something slip a little bit and said, the neighborhood where I was when I acquired this orange. And so this person, knowing so many people, can only come to the conclusion that I got it from so-and-so who was wealthy in the neighborhood. So they bid me goodbye and they went on their way. So they went to go see so-and-so. And when they talked to so-and-so over here, the rich dude or dudette, tells the person that they never gave me an orange. Gotcha. So they think that I had to have stolen it then, even though that the person did not say that I stole it from them. They just told the person that they didn't give me one. They didn't give me an orange. So the other person is making assumptions that I stole it from that person when it wasn't that person I got the orange from. So, You see how sticky things can get when you start making assumptions. Assumptions are a very wicked tool, especially for the clever trying to spin the wrong narrative. So, come to find out, it was this neighbor's neighbor who had the orange who gave the orange to me, not the rich dude, okay? And I came by quite honestly because I did a chore for so-and-so, the neighbor, and in partial payment, I also received an orange, which was very delightful. In fact, I had 2 oranges. I ate one myself, but I had a second one, so I thought I'd share my good fortune. So you see how things can really be construed and taken apart bit by bit by making a lot of assumptions and by having the wrong perspective and not being close enough to the situation to really know the truth of the situation. How familiar does that sound in today's world where somebody saw something or said something and all of that was taken out of context and diced, sliced, and diced some more to make it look and sound much different than the original content? It's very easy to do, very clever. And you know what? It's done every day in today's world. Let's spin a new tale, shall we? Just say you and I were to go on a date. How would that scenario be? Well, I don't know. Well, just say we were to go to a nice restaurant. And you see, it was one of those restaurants that we could see each other's mouths. We could see each other's eyes. And we talked for 2 or 3 hours. Wouldn't that be nice? What kind of scenario could you dream of? Let's have a nice conversation, shall we? So let's have a nice conversation. And we had wine and drink and good food.